Hello and thank you for tuning in to our Hangout. I'm Laura von Stockhausen, NSCAA Marketing Coordinator and today's moderator. With us today are two of the top coaching educators in the country, NSCAA Director of Coaching Education, Ian Barker, and U.S. Youth Soccer Director of Coaching, Sam Snell. In a few short months, the soccer world will be gathering once again in Philadelphia for the 2015 NSCAA Convention and the U.S. Youth Soccer Workshop. Ian and Sam will discuss these events today, as well as how they fit in with the evolution of coaching education as it's seen today. If you have any questions during today's conversation, tweet them to us using the hashtag NSCAA Philly, which is the hashtag we'll be using throughout the convention season. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And we'll go ahead and get started right into our first group of questions. This is going to go to both of you. Can you guys explain a little bit about what your personal approaches to coaching education are? Sam, we'll start with you.
My approach to coaching education and the way that I do things out on the field when I'm training with a team, the way that I get things across to coaches in a lot of the courses is what we are nowadays calling coach-centric, moving that shift away toward how do we get it to being player-centric in that involving the players more in deciding what happens out on the field. So it's the use of guided discovery, it's the use of game-like activities, it's the use during matches of talking to the players on the bench, pointing out things that are happening out on the field, and the whole intent of it is to develop the American player that is a thinking player as well as a technical player.
Right, and these are the theories that U.S. Youth Soccer all share as well, and how you guys put forward as an organization.
I'm sorry, say that again, Laura?
And these are the theories that U.S. Youth Soccer is trying to put forth day in and day out, and what you guys represent as an organization?
Yes, and I think you'll see that reflected also in the sessions that go on at the workshop, obviously mostly for the coaches, but some of it might come up in the other education tracks that we have for referees and for administrators. But it's very much in line, I think, with the way that a lot of us in soccer in the United States are thinking about how do we go about training and developing our players.
Right. And Ian, can you talk a little bit about what the NSCAA's philosophy and approaches to coaching education are?
Sure. I'll talk a little bit about where I'm at personally, and then maybe tie it back into the NSCAA as a whole. My attitude towards coach education is certainly an evolving one, as it would be for Sam and any of us in the coach education business. I think where I'm at right now is, with the exception of perhaps child safety or player safety and well-being, I think it's important in coach education we try to lose the vocabulary which includes the words always or never. And so it's a little bit of a flipping of the classroom type model and finding out what each individual coach's needs are in terms of coach education. And so a little bit less towards the prescriptive and a little bit more towards the reflexive, and an awareness of what each learner brings to the table and what each learner would like to take away. I also think it's very true that most of us that are involved in coach education, one of the greatest stimulus for us is the feedback and the experience of the candidates that we work with or the coaches we work with. So I'm definitely inclined towards a model which is, to the best of our ability, sensitive and reflexive to each individual, as opposed to cookie cutter. 30 people sit in a classroom, they get 30 samplings of the same content and they go away, but very relatively small number of them can necessarily activate upon that information.
Right. Perfect. Now, we've seen a lot of dynamic changes in coaching education over the past 5 to 10 years. How have we seen technology affect coaching education, and is there a need to embrace it more or maybe temper it a little bit? Sam, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, human learning, in the end, is the deepest and the richest when it's person to person. So ultimately, that's what has to happen. I think technology has been and will continue to be a great resource for us in education. Just has evolved in terms of the breadth of it and the ease of it, and an example being what we're doing right now. But having webinars, having online courses and the such is a great way to share information, but ultimately in coaching, you have to get out on the field and see how do I actually do it? Where does the rubber meet the road? So ultimately, it's going to be perhaps a coaching education instructor working with a group of coaching candidates out on a field, and actually those candidates getting some direct feedback based on what they're actually doing while they're running a training session, hopefully with a group of actual players, to the coaches pretending to be players. But technology is a wonderful new tool or expanded tool that we have now, but the most important piece is the final in-person piece.
Right. Ian, how about you? Where do you see the relationship between technology and education?
Sure. Well, I'm very much in accord with Sam. I mean, from my point of view, there is ultimately no substitute to having grass on your cleats, or maybe synthetic grass on your cleats,
Right.
and being in that environment. And one of the things about being in that environment is that you are either standing or close to the coach who's delivering, so you get the perspective of a senior professional instructor coach delivering, and or you're maybe even participating in being evaluated on your soccer skills, but you're actually having an opportunity to feel what the kids feel when they're doing these sessions. However, the availability, we would be silly if we weren't taking advantage of the availability of all these technologies that we have. And so one thing I think is really interesting is now that the grassroots coach, the person who has a real job, can be driving to training, arrive at training, and pull up on their iPad or their smartphone some activities, maybe some animations of those activities, and they have an opportunity to be better prepared. Because I think what we're trying to do is help coaches with preparation. One interesting thing we've also seen with the e-learning that we've been doing with the NSCAA is a lot of people are now taking the opportunity of an e-learning platform prior or as their first interaction with coaching. And my hope is that this group of people that maybe were a bit anxious about going onto the field can actually be encouraged to now go to the field, whereas previously they weren't. So the initial engagement is through the e-learning, or through the technology, and then it drives them to the field. Because I think we have to find and encourage people to, and if technology helps with that, and so that it's a bit of a chicken and the egg or a horse before the cart type of thing, I think that's a great way of using technology too.
Right. Completely agree. All right, cool. We're going to switch avenues a little bit. Now, you both are seen as two of the top coaching educators in the country. How do you personally stay relevant in what's going on in the field, and even how do you stay ahead of the trend? Sam?
For me, part of that is continuing professional growth. So that could be everything from attending the convention, attending the workshop. I know Ian and I have joked a little bit over the last few years about we actually want the opportunity at that setting to be able to be students ourselves, but we wind up being so busy with both our own sessions and behind the scenes work that it's hard to do that. But that sort of a thing, as well as some of the international opportunities to go to other coaches, sitting in with professional clubs, whether that be domestic or foreign. I know I have the great opportunity where I'm at because the USU Soccer office is part of the Toyota Soccer Park here in Frisco, so we are literally across the parking lot from the stadium that FC Dallas plays in. So I get the opportunity to meet with those coaches every once in a while over lunch, and we talk about different aspects of coaching and youth development. But I use those things. I use also feedback from the candidates in courses that I teach. That's another big part. I learn a lot from the people taking the courses that I teach, as well as from instructors.
Right. Ian, how about you? How do you stay relevant and ahead of trends?
Well, I think just as a sort of a setup for that response, I think I'm probably a little disappointed that not enough coaches are in an ongoing learning type of mindset. I think we find a lot of coaches that are quite fixed in their knowledge and where they want to be. I mean, I think that's probably true in a lot of walks of life and a lot of professions. I am much like Sam and much like probably the audience today and a number of our colleagues around the game, regardless of what level they're coaching at, are people that enjoy the ongoing learning process. And I just simply happen to have that quality too. So I take every opportunity I can to jump into a classroom setting, observe a field setting, and it's not necessarily some sort of vertical learning where it means necessarily going overseas or seeing somebody at a higher level or going to an MLS or NWSL training. You can learn a lot, and some of it is what to do, and some of it is what maybe not to do by watching colleagues at a peer level or coaches working with different ages, different genders, different environments than you have. We're very blessed with all kinds of resources, and in the jobs that Sam and I do, we're always getting information coming to us that's shared with us, sometimes because people want a commercial piece of it. But anyway, so you're always around it. You always have the opportunity to access it. I will continue this sort of mantra of the formal education where we go away, information is delivered, you're evaluated on it, you get a certificate of participation, which I think is important. The semi-formal, which is more the sort of sitting, watching, absorbing, but not necessarily being asked to engage. And then the most valuable, and I don't think anybody would disagree with this, is what we call the informal, which is having a cup of coffee, talking about the game, talking about an experience, because I probably have gained more in my time interacting with people like Sam and other colleagues in USU Soccer, US Club, from those type of interactions than being sat in a classroom for 55 minutes and then ticking some boxes. So I encourage all coaches to challenge themselves to find those informal opportunities.
Right. So we just talked a little bit about staying ahead of the trends of soccer. With that said, what do you two see as some of those upcoming elements of the game of soccer and how it's evolving, and also how coaches can prepare themselves for these upcoming evolutions and trends? Sam?
Well, I think to begin to answer that question, we need to think about the various levels of the game. If we're talking about international trends, national teams, professional teams below that, I think for 99.9% of our coaches, that's really not directly relevant. It's something that they want to warn of for sure, but I think we have to look at what are the trends in the growth of soccer in the United States, and how's that going to come about over the next few years, what we see in performance out on the field with players, and therefore how do coaches continue to grow themselves to be able to help that growth of youth soccer and college soccer and high school soccer in the United States. So I think with that, the trend is growing more toward, as I kind of touched on earlier, of player-centered development. So how do we get our players to not only be skillful, technical with the ball? We always need improvement there. So a lot of coaches need to spend, I think, a good deal more time studying the techniques of the game a little bit more closely in terms of the details of those techniques and how to teach them. But aside from that, we are growing in terms of how do we actually use those skills in a game so that our training sessions reflect that. So there's more decision making going on in training sessions, because I think that's the next big norm that we're moving towards. I think you see already with the more elite youth teams and high school teams and college teams, they're already play that way and they're trained that way. But I don't see that yet as being in the middle of the bell curve with the average team and the average coach. I see us growing in that direction of the average team and the average coach also becoming much more uh, player-centered in the way that the game is played, less prescriptive in the way that coaches train their players. And I think that's a trend that we all need to be working towards so that it does become the new norm.
Perfect. Ian, how about you? How do you see soccer evolving and coaches staying on trend with that?
Sure. Well, I don't see in the near future the field dimensions getting a lot different at the senior level, and I don't see a difference in the numbers. So I think the ultimate goal or ultimate game will be 110 by 70 with 22 players. If we look at the World Cup as an example, and we look at the final four teams, possibly with the exception of the Germany-Brazil result, but the actual composition of the four teams in the Men's World Cup semis, you could make a case that if you put them in neutral uniforms, it would be a little bit harder to tell the difference between Argentina and Germany or Holland and Brazil than it would have been 5, 10, 15 years ago. So what I think we're seeing at the senior level is we're seeing a drive towards each individual player being technically proficient, a balance of athleticism with technical ability, a balance of tactical acumen with psychology regarding teamwork and support of each other and so on and so forth. So I think the game is the top end examples of the game should guide us a little bit. Now, you extrapolate that down to what an under-6 coach should be doing in Frisco, Texas, and I think Sam and I would agree it would be fun, movement, and exposure to the ball. And as we get into the high schools, even though we're competing for college scholarships, we're concerned about individual excellence, we should also be concerned about where are we actually going to take that player, because I still think the majority of our youth players in America, the next stage after their youth experience is probably some form of collegiate soccer. Some will circumvent or some will miss the college experience, some may travel overseas, but we need to understand what college soccer looks like for a young person as they learn to deal with living away from home, as they deal with academics and laundry and this type of stuff. So, but I think the game is a continuum, or the range from the under-6 in Frisco, Texas to the World Cup final. I think it's critical that we as coaches understand where we fit on that continuum. We may have aspirations to coach at different levels, and we may prepare ourselves for that, but I think the main challenge for us is to look at all these examples, all this information, all these educational programs, and then make sure we can apply it in our context. And I think if a coach is cognizant of that and mindful of that, their children or their players will be getting the very best value possible.
Right. We're going to switch gears a little bit once again. Now we've heard Ian and Sam talking throughout our chat, of course. Now the NSCAA and US Youth Soccer have worked together for a while now. In 2013, even combining our convention and workshop into one location. How and why did this decision come about? Ian, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between US Youth Soccer and the NSCAA?
Yeah, I think my answer is pretty short, which is unusual for me. But whilst both organisations serve different purposes in as much as we're a coaching membership base, and of course Sam's organisation is dealing with state associations, youth players, parents, and so on and so forth, the opportunity to collaborate meaningfully with good friends in the soccer business, as it were, makes all the sense in the world. So for all of us that are coaches, it was really nice to go from having to going to convention in January, going to workshop in February, to have a single event. The synergies far outweigh any of the challenges of making sure that both organizations representatively at the board levels and so on and so forth are happy, because our members, USU Soccer members, many of whom are indeed the same people, got this opportunity to get all of their coaching, education, shopping, their networking, socializing, top up at one time. And the energies are so positive from this. And then you blend in the representation from MLS, NWSL, and other organizations, vendors. It becomes that opportunity for the soccer community to get together in a really, really unique way, and is much better than having 5 or 6 separate workshops or conventions. This is one opportunity where we can all come together, and the ultimate beneficiaries by far are our members and the coaches by far.
Right. Sam, did you have anything to add into the relationship between the two organizations?
Well, I think Ian hit on all of the major points, and particularly for the coaches, it makes a lot of sense. It was overdue in regards to the coaches being able to have kind of a one-stop national event. But I think it's also going to grow for the referees and for soccer administrators. There's education sessions that are available to those two groups of people, as well as ancillary meetings that they go to, and I can only see that piece of it growing as well, to where the convention of people that are involved in leading soccer in our nation.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We're going to once again switch gears a little bit more and actually talk about the event of the NSCAA Convention. I have a few questions for both of you. We'll kind of go back and forth. Ian, first and foremost, why should a soccer coach attend the NSCAA Convention?
Well, I knew this question was coming about a couple of days ago, so I just wrote down four things. One, I think, is the networking. Whether you happen to be looking for a job, looking for a new opportunity, or you just want to stay connected. But I think the networking, certainly the learning at all levels, and sometimes the learning, again, is achieved by actually delivering sessions and being a presenter, sharing, making sure that as an attendee you're sharing information, sharing your experiences with your colleagues, and then a part of that sort of communication piece is the socializing. Hopefully not all the socializing is 3 a.m. With an adult beverage. Sometimes it's a cup of coffee or a sandwich or something else. But so, networking, learning, sharing, and socializing, and it all speaks to that piece of communication. I think what's great if you're a first-time attendee is you'll probably be a little overwhelmed, a bit shy, kind of sitting with your goodie bag in the back of the room. But if you engage, by the end of 4 days, the experience of interacting with other people is the richest experience of the convention workshop.
Sam, how about you? Why should a youth coach attend the U.S. workshop, U.S. Youth Soccer workshop?
Well, I think there's the obvious piece right off of the education opportunities and all of the things that Ian has touched upon. There's also recognition opportunities, be it at the gala that we put on, the awards banquet that the NSCAA puts on, the different recognition breakfasts and lunches that the NSCAA puts on, some of the different meetings that go on of different groups that are at the convention and workshop. There are, in fact, so many different things that you could avail yourself of to make connections with people as well as educate yourself. It's undoable in the 3, 4, 5 days that somebody might be there to be able to do it all. So it's something that you have to kind of pick and choose a little bit. And, we haven't even touched upon that opportunity to go and business-wise meet with vendors or just see what's going on in the vendor area as another opportunity to see the MLS draft. There's so many different things that, again, as Ian touched upon, if you're a first-time person coming to it, you probably really need to get online, pick out sessions, and pick out things that you want to go to kind of be semi-organized going into it so that you can actually get through it all. But where else in the world can you come and walk down the hallway and walk past the local U6 coach, walk past the national team coach, walk past a college coach, walk past a coach that's working in the professional ranks? It's a great, great event that we should all be very proud that we have the chance to participate in it. And if you haven't been to it before, to the workshop or the convention, you really need to make plans to come to it this year. It's one of the most important and also unique soccer events, certainly in our country, perhaps in the world in many regards.
Yeah.
Right. It's a great problem to have, having too many educational opportunities, too many people to want to speak with, too many ceremonies and breakfasts and whatnot. So definitely a good issue to have. Sam, I'm going to come back to you. Simply, what is your favorite workshop memory that you can think of over all the years?
My favorite workshop memory, one of them actually is from the very first one I went to. The first one I went to was in 1994 in Orlando, and I have this memory of watching Bob Gansler doing a demo session. And the unique part about that was that we were outside on the grass. So that was a pretty neat thing, because having been to a whole bunch of these different types of conventions and workshops and the such, you know, and particularly back in those days, we were often in a ballroom, which wasn't always ideal for doing soccer. So that was a unique memory, but on a somewhat more personal level also, just a couple of years after that, we had the workshop in Providence, Rhode Island, and I was the technical director for Louisiana Soccer at the time, and a good friend of mine, Bill Buren from Florida Youth Soccer, he and I arranged a snowball fight between Florida and Louisiana. So that was pretty funny, watching people who had never been in a snowball fight before trying to make that happen.
Very cool. Ian, how about you? What is your favorite convention memory?
I think it was 4 or 5 years ago in Baltimore. I wasn't employed by the NSCAA, and from the convention to our hotel was a small walk around the harbor, a beautiful place. The location of the Baltimore convention is a great one. And it started to rain, so I stopped at a Barnes and Noble's bookstore, went upstairs to just flick the magazines while the rainstorm went away. And Gerard Houllier, who had just recently, I want to say, left Aston Villa, having previously coached Liverpool and a few other places, was having a cup of coffee in the Barnes and Nobles. Barnes and Noble, which is for me is a pretty important person to me. I'm sure everybody else has different celebrities and stars, but Gerard Houllier was having a cup of coffee, and I thought about it for a couple of minutes, and I thought, what the heck? So I went over and introduced myself, briefly expressed my admiration of his career and his contributions to the game, and he sort of stood up, shook my hand, engaged for a few minutes, and would have engaged for longer had I not broke off the engagement just out of respect to him. So that was one of those examples when I was thinking about it that can actually happen to anybody who goes to convention and workshop, is the opportunity just to be in the elevator with somebody that you admire, or to go and do a top soccer clinic and work with kids that need special attention and special needs. So it's what you want to get out of it. But for me, that was a pretty easy one to recall, was this opportunity to meet Gerard Houllier, who now, of course, is working with Red Bull and a little bit with Red Bull New York for sure.
Once again, very, very cool. I'm going to stick with you, Ian. If you could do convention in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Okay, well, again, I knew the question was coming, so I decided to string the 3 words that you gave me together. I came up with 2. One was an opportunity for all, or opportunity for all, because I think that's true. There's an opportunity for everyone at Convention Workshop, or even maybe simpler, and maybe you can use it in a tagline for promotion, do not miss. I think if you have some disposable time and some disposable income, certainly both of those need to be the case. The convention and workshop is a do not miss opportunity.
Perfect. Sam, how about you? 3 words to describe the workshop.
Engage, energize, enact. And I think kind of describing those, engage, it's that opportunity that both Ian and I have been talking about. It's that opportunity to engage with other soccer junkies, if you will, from not only all around the United States, from all around the world, whether it's Gerard Houllier or others that you'll rub elbows with. It's that opportunity to engage with people that are passionate about and deeply engaged in making sure that soccer continues to grow in quality and quantity in the country. And from that, I think it's the energized part. I always come back with my batteries recharged. It's the vibe that you pick up from the other people that are there. So I think you always get energized by being at that event and all of the things going on and all the people that are there. And then I think probably the most important piece is the enact part, that you don't just end up with convention intention, that you actually go home and some of the things that you learned or got inspired about, you go home and you actually enact it, you actually make it all happen. So those are the 3 words for me.
Perfect. We are now going to actually go ahead and look at questions we've been getting in from Twitter. Reminder, if you have any questions, you can tweet them using the hashtag NSCAA Philly. If we can't get to him online, we'll be sure to pass them along to our wonderful panelists and hopefully get you some answers soon. First question I have comes from is asking, will there be workshops to help connect coaches with parents and to help educate parents? We've actually had a few questions about this. Um, Being a coach, dealing with the excitement and maybe the over enthusiasm of parents sometimes. Ian, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, sure. So the workshop convention previously, we've had different presentations about parent coach or coach education, just full stop. I will give a tip of my hat to my colleagues in Minnesota Youth Soccer who have an excellent coach education, parent education piece. They've presented at convention the last couple of years. Certainly, this typically starts at US Youth Soccer because the issue of parent education is probably higher on the priorities of US Youth Soccer, but certainly one of the things we do with the NSCAA when we help coaches is help them create collaborators of their parent group. So the coach is on one side with a set of responsibilities, the parents are on the other side of the field with an equally important set of but different set of responsibilities, and the kids are in the middle. So we will continue to put on educational pieces for dealing with parents, supporting parents, educating parents in the environment. They'll be at this year's convention workshop, and they will continue to be so.
Perfect. Sam, how about you? Anything to add to that?
We have always put on some of our sessions, be it in our coaching track, usually it's there, but sometimes also in our administrator track, as to how do administrators and coaches in the youth club environment interact with the parents. And so we'll have that again this year. We will always have education sessions on that particular topic. So I would recommend coming to the convention workshop to go online and take a look at all of the different sessions that are going on, and if the parent education piece or the coach interaction with parent piece is of interest to you, you're going to find some topics that are on exactly that, and just make sure you circle those on your schedule for those particular sessions as they go on.
Perfect. We have a couple questions. I'm going to try to string them into one. With so many organizations and associations and federations involved here in the soccer community of the States, do you guys think that is hurting or helping U.S. soccer in the long run, having so many different associations out there with so many different options? And with that said, what do we as coaching educators in the States need to do to legitimize ourselves on a international basis? It's a long question. It's a two-part question, but Ian, I'll start with you.
I'm gonna. You got kind of a loaded question here that probably isn't really convention workshop related, but on a good day, and the majority of my days are good, I'm inclined to see these challenges as a glass half full for us. We are an incredibly large country with an incredibly large number of people with a great deal of diversity. And we as a culture embrace opportunity, and we want freedom in our exercise of our opportunities. I think that's sort of an American thing. So here's what I would say. I think it's okay to have a multitude of organizations, a multitude of menu options for people, but I would encourage people to be very, very clear on what it is they want to get out of it. And so I'll give you an example that may resonate. Within a community, there's 2 or 3 youth soccer clubs. The goal of one club is to support the progress of the high school program. So the goal of the club is to work with players that enhances and supports the high school program. A goal of another club is to try to accumulate as many college placements for their players. Another club is looking to provide as many community-based options locally for their club, and another one wants to win the state cup. I don't think they're mutually exclusive goals, but it may be that in the opportunities for the parent or the guardian to look, there are different things that they can get out of those programs. and it may be a reflection of potential time expense and financial expense too. So I do think it's a challenge for the broader soccer community to navigate the alphabet soup, the acronym soup that is US soccer. But I do think on a good day, it reflects our diversity and it reflects the great number of opportunities. I think it's the responsibility of the end user to take some ownership of where they decide to place their players and place their coaching career.
Very nice. Sam, how about you? Do you have anything to add to
Good
that?
luck, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for that pass.
Yeah,
Is that a hospital pass?
yeah, that was.
It is indeed the alphabet soup. The United States of America to somebody that's coming here from another country takes a year or two for them to be able to get the idea of the landscape. And even for those of us that are engaged in it full time, it can be dizzying at times as to all of the different groups. But I think when you look closely at the different groups, then I think you see a little bit more synergy than not. We're not always rowing in all of us in the same direction, but by and large, we actually are going towards, in our own ways, towards improving the game of soccer and growing the game of soccer all across our nation. Will we ever be just one federation and everything stems out of that? No, I don't think, as Ian touched upon, is kind of the American mentality. We want diversity. In fact, monopoly is against the law in our country on a business sense. So I think that diversity actually helps us sometimes because it also helps us all to keep sharp. You need a little competition in order to be able to go out and play your best. You need that other team out on the field in order to play your best, as in a manner of speaking. And that there's a few different soccer organizations in our country. We help each other to innovate and help each other to continue to push forward and not just kind of get stagnant in the way that we approach things. So I think there's probably a few more pluses to it, minuses, and the fact that the leadership of the biggest organizations are doing more work together is going to help us row a little bit more in the same direction.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that the convention is where you'll see, more of these organizations and associations more than anywhere else is at the convention. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. A special thank you to Ian and Sam for taking the time to chat with us. And a reminder that of today's chat will be live on the nscaa.com/live page as soon as our hangout concludes. Also, registration for the NSCAA Convention and US Youth Workshop is open now. Visit www.nscaaconvention.com for all your information and to register today. We will be posting more information regarding clinicians and events and news for our convention every day on our website, so be sure to check into nscaa.com for all of your updates and informational needs. Thank you again, Ian and Sam, for joining us. Be sure to tune into our next live chat, and thank you again for tuning in.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks.